There are feelings that live quietly inside you, untouched and unspoken. They were never given the chance to breathe, to be heard, to be felt fully. And yet, they continue to live, shaping your choices, your reactions, your silences. 19th October is not about finding something new. It is about meeting what has always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. The unspoken pain doesn't vanish because you ignore it. It hides in the corners of your daily life, disguised as tiredness, irritation, restlessness, or emptiness. Every time you swallowed your truth to keep peace, every time you pretended to be fine when you were breaking, a small piece of you learned to stay hidden. But now, on 19th October, the time has come to meet those hidden pieces again. You see, healing begins with honesty. Not honesty with others, but with yourself. It begins when you stop saying, I'm okay, when your soul is trembling inside. 19th of October invites you to pause, to take one deep breath, and to finally look inward, not to judge, not to fix, but simply to see. There are emotions that never found words. There are moments that passed but left their echo inside you. And all of them are waiting for your awareness, not your escape. When you understand this, something changes. You start to realize that the pain you carry isn't your enemy. It's just a signal, a whisper that says, look at me. Every unspoken feeling is energy, and energy never dies, it just transforms. When you suppress it, it hardens inside you. When you face it, it softens, it moves, it releases. This is what 19th October is here to remind you, that what was once your silence can now become your healing. There is a difference between moving on and healing. Moving on is pretending the past didn't hurt you. Healing is admitting that it did. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to sit quietly and allow the truth to rise from within you. Let the tears come if they want to. Let the memories surface. They are not here to harm you. They are here to free you. Every emotion you once buried is a message from the past asking for your attention now. 19th October becomes a mirror showing you the reflection of all that you've carried without words. The anger that turned into numbness, the love that turned into distance, the grief that turned into silence. Each of these emotions holds a part of your strength because surviving them made you who you are. But surviving is not the end of the journey. Living fully is, and you can't live fully while parts of you remain buried. To heal the feelings you never shared, you must walk back into the silence you once created and bring light there. Not with stories or explanations, but with presence. Sit with your own heart. Let it speak. You will notice how much of your life was built on what you didn't say. The apologies you never gave, the thank yous you never expressed, the boundaries you never set, they all created patterns that shaped your destiny quietly. But destiny is not fixed. 19th October gives you a choice to rewrite it by speaking truth to yourself for the first time. The act of recognition is sacred. When you recognize the pain within you, it starts to dissolve. It no longer needs to hide behind smiles or distractions. You begin to move differently, breathe differently, see differently. You become lighter, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you are no longer carrying what wasn't meant to be carried forever. This is what 19th October symbolizes, a silent awakening. A day when the unseen within you finally meets your awareness. It is not dramatic in appearance, but it is revolutionary in effect. The smallest act of acknowledgement can shift your entire emotional world. When you stop running from what you feel, the energy that once held you down becomes the energy that lifts you up. The wound that once defined you becomes the wisdom that refines you. Don't wait for others to understand what you feel. Some emotions are meant only for your own heart to hold. Healing doesn't always happen in conversation. Sometimes it happens in solitude, in the quiet hour when you close your eyes and whisper, I understand now. That is when you begin to release what you've held for so long. 19th of October teaches you that the past does not need to be erased. It only needs to be integrated. The parts of you that hurt are not broken. They are simply waiting to be brought home. You do this by listening, by allowing yourself to feel what you once suppressed. Every time you do, you reclaim a piece of your soul that you abandoned long ago. And when you finally gather all those pieces, you realize something extraordinary, that your silence was never weakness. It was simply the space between who you were and who you are becoming. The pain that once isolated you now becomes your greatest connection to life itself. Because once you have healed what you never shared, you no longer fear feeling, you no longer hide from yourself. So on the 19th of October, take one step closer to your truth. Let this day be the day you no longer run. Let it be the day you choose to face what's inside, gently but bravely. You don't need to tell the world your story. You only need to tell it to your own heart. Because once your heart knows it is safe to feel, it begins to heal. And that healing will echo through every part of your life that was once silent. Silence is often misunderstood. People believe that being silent means being at peace, that keeping quiet means having control. But 19th October reminds you that silence is not always calmness. Sometimes silence is only the echo of pain that was never released. Sometimes it is a wall built to protect what you didn't know how to express. On this day, you begin to see that peace and suppression are not the same. Peace brings ease, suppression brings tension. And you can feel the difference deep inside your body. When emotions are held back for too long, they do not disappear. They settle in the mind, they rest in the body, and they shape the way you think, breathe, and move. The silence that once seemed like control slowly becomes pressure. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when you want to scream. You keep living as if everything is fine, but somewhere inside, you know something is missing. 19th October is the moment to stop pretending. It is the day to realize that silence is not strength if it hides your truth. The feelings you suppress will find another way to speak. They show up as exhaustion, as anger without cause, as disconnection from everything you once loved. They show up as distance in your relationships, as emptiness in your achievements, as a quiet sadness that you can't name. The body speaks when the mouth refuses. It remembers every emotion you've silenced, and 19th October whispers to you, it is time to listen. To heal the feelings you never shared, you must stop protecting your pain and start understanding it. Pain does not need to be hidden, it needs to be seen. Silence keeps you stuck in the same emotional circle, repeating the same lessons again and again. But the moment you decide to face what you've avoided, transformation begins. 19th October is that invitation to break the pattern of silence, to stop calling avoidance peace, and to begin the real work of release. You don't need to shout to be heard. You only need to be honest. Honesty with yourself is louder than any words you could ever say to someone else. It means looking into the silence and asking yourself what you've been holding there. What memory still makes your chest tighten? What truth have you been afraid to accept? Once you bring it into awareness, it loses its control over you. The weight begins to lift. There is a false comfort in silence. It feels safe because it keeps you from confrontation. It keeps you from judgment, from rejection. But it also keeps you from connection. It keeps you from living fully. The heart cannot heal while it is locked away. 19th of October asks you to open it, not for others, but for yourself. Open it to the emotions that have been waiting to be felt. Allow yourself to express without shame, maybe through words or tears or stillness. Expression is not always spoken. Sometimes it's simply allowing the feeling to exist. When you release what's hidden, you begin to understand that peace is not found in silence, but in alignment. True peace comes when your inner world matches your outer one, when your words, emotions, and actions no longer fight each other. 19th October holds the energy of alignment. It is a day that teaches you to stop hiding behind quietness and start living in truth. Because truth is what brings peace, not the absence of sound. There is strength in speaking gently to yourself. There is courage in admitting that you've been carrying things too long. Sometimes all you need to say is, I feel this, and it's okay. That simple acknowledgement is where healing begins. It doesn't matter how long you've been silent. The moment you choose to face what's inside, everything begins to change. 19th October marks that beginning, the day the silence turns into awareness. Awareness is freedom. It allows you to see that your emotions were never your enemy. They were teachers. Each wave of sadness, anger, or loneliness was trying to show you something about yourself. When you suppress them, you reject your own lessons. But when you let them rise, you start learning who you truly are beneath all the protection and fear. This day carries a message that emotional maturity does not come from holding everything in. It comes from knowing what to release, what to keep, and what to learn from. Your silence does not make you calm, understanding does. And understanding can only come from honesty. The storm that silence creates within you can finally settle when you allow your emotions to move. Movement is healing. Energy that stays trapped turns into pain. Energy that flows becomes strength. That is why 19 October is so powerful. It is the reminder to let everything flow again, to stop storing emotions like secrets and to start transforming them into lessons. It takes courage to break your own silence. It takes courage to say, "This hurt me," or "This matters to me." But the courage you find in honesty is the kind that never fades. It is the courage that builds a stronger, clearer, and freer version of you. Silence might have been your shield once, but it does not have to be your identity forever. So, on the 19th of October, breathe deeply and let go of the idea that being quiet means being strong. Strength is the ability to face what you feel without running from it. It is the ability to listen to your own heart and not be afraid of what it says. When you finally do that, silence transforms. It is no longer a cage. It becomes space, the kind of space where healing can happen, where your true peace can finally begin to grow. There is a kind of freedom that doesn't come from running away from pain, but from walking straight into it. Vulnerability is that doorway. 19th October carries the energy of opening, of releasing what you have protected for too long. The truth is, every wall you've built to stay safe has also kept you distant from your own life. You've learned to hide, to be strong, to appear composed. But strength without openness becomes emptiness. It becomes a silent struggle no one sees. On the 19th of October, life invites you to take off the armor and feel again. To be vulnerable is to stand without defenses before your own truth. It's not weakness, it's power in its purest form. Because when you allow yourself to feel, you allow yourself to heal. When you allow your heart to open, you allow light to enter where darkness once lived. You've spent years trying to be unbreakable, but maybe it's time to see that real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing how to rebuild with softness. If 19th October reminds you of that softness, a softness that doesn't make you fragile, but human. Most people hide their feelings not because they don't care, but because they care too much. They've been hurt before. They've been misunderstood. They've shared their heart and it wasn't received with the same care. So they close. They bury their emotions under routines, smiles, distractions. But 19th October whispers differently. It asks you to stop hiding behind control and allow life to touch you again. Every emotion you suppress builds a wall. Every wall you remove brings you closer to your own truth. Vulnerability means standing in your truth without pretending. It means saying, "This is what I feel," even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain. It's the courage to be seen as you are. The world often teaches you to perform strength, to hold yourself together, to never let anyone see the cracks. But the cracks are where your light enters. The cracks are where growth begins. 19th October is the day you realize that protecting your heart too much also prevents it from expanding. There is beauty in honesty. There is strength in softness. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you stop resisting life. You stop controlling the outcome and start trusting the process. Vulnerability teaches you acceptance, not acceptance of pain, but acceptance of reality. What you feel is real. What you need is valid. What you long for matters. When you honor that, you step into a deeper kind of peace. 19th October reminds you that hiding your emotions doesn't protect you, it isolates you. The moment you open up, even just to yourself, healing begins to move. You don't have to share your story with the world. You just need to stop pretending you don't have one. Vulnerability is not about telling everyone how you feel. It's about being honest enough to feel it within yourself. It's about sitting with your sadness without rushing it away, about embracing your fear without letting it define you, about seeing your scars as part of your strength. When you let your heart open, it might tremble, it might hurt, but it also begins to breathe again. The numbness starts to fade. The walls that kept you safe start to crumble, and behind them, you find yourself raw, real, alive. 19th October holds that sacred opportunity to return to yourself, not the version that hides, but the one that dares to be seen. Being vulnerable is also about allowing others to meet the real you. It's about dropping the performance, the forced smiles, the half truths. It's about saying, I don't have it all figured out, and being okay with that, because the moment you stop pretending, you create space for connection. The people meant for you will never require your perfection, and they will recognize your honesty. And that is where love begins to heal you, not the shallow love that feeds the ego, but the deep love that nourishes the soul. There is a gentle kind of courage that awakens on 19th October. The courage to feel without resistance, to face the emotions you've ignored, to speak the truth you've swallowed. Every tear that falls washes away the dust of old pain. Every breath taken in vulnerability clears a space for new life to grow. You are not becoming weaker by feeling. You are becoming clearer, purer, more aligned. For too long, you may have believed that being strong means being untouched. But life doesn't ask you to be untouched. It asks you to be present. Presence means feeling deeply, living fully, and trusting that you can survive whatever emotions arise. And vulnerability connects you back to that trust. It reminds you that you've always been capable, not because you've never fallen, but because you've always risen. 19th October stands as a quiet teacher. It tells you that the journey toward healing begins when you stop protecting yourself from your own emotions. You do not need to be fearless to be free. You only need to be willing to feel, to open your heart just enough for light to enter, to let your inner truth breathe again. The more you open, the lighter you become. When you embrace vulnerability, you become untouchable in a new way, not because pain can't reach you, but because it no longer controls you. You learn to feel deeply and still remain centered. You learn to cry and still stay strong. You learn to love without fear of loss, to speak without fear of judgment. That is what true freedom feels like. So on 19 October, let your walls soften. Let your truth rise gently. Let your heart remember how to feel. Don't fear the tremble inside you. It means your soul is awakening. The feelings you once buried are not your weakness. They are your path. They are guiding you back to authenticity, to peace, to freedom. And when you finally allow yourself to be vulnerable, you realize the truth that everything you ever wanted to heal was waiting for you to simply open your heart and let life in. Forgiveness is the bridge between the person you were and the person you are becoming. 19th of October carries that quiet moment where you finally understand that holding on has only kept you standing still. The emotions you never shared, the words you never said, the guilt that has followed you through the years, all of them begin to lose their power when you choose to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is not about erasing what happened. It's about releasing your grip on the past that still controls you. It is a decision to stop punishing yourself for what you didn't know back then. You see, every choice you made, every silence you kept, every mistake that still echoes inside you, it all came from a version of you who was simply trying to survive. You did what you could with the awareness you had, But healing begins when you stop wishing the past were different and start accepting it for what it was. 19th October arrives like a breath of truth, reminding you that the pain of the past no longer has to define the future. The most powerful forgiveness you can offer is the one you give to yourself. You've carried the burden of guilt and regret far too long. You've replayed moments, conversations, and choices in your head, hoping they could somehow change. But they can't. The past doesn't change by revisiting it, it changes when you stop feeding it. Forgiveness means you finally allow yourself to rest. It means saying, I release myself from what I did not know, from who I had to be to survive. A 19th of October is the day that gives you permission to let go of the invisible chains you've placed around your own heart. You may have thought holding on to pain was a form of responsibility or a way to stay accountable. But in truth, it's been a form of self-punishment. You cannot grow if you keep punishing the same wound. You cannot heal if you keep reopening what was meant to close. Forgiveness is the act of allowing the wound to finally breathe. There is deep wisdom in forgiving yourself. It doesn't mean you deny what happened. It means you no longer allow it to define your worth. The things you didn't say, the emotions you hid, the moments you wish you could rewrite, they are all part of your human experience. Every silence was a teacher. Every mistake was a guide. Every regret was a signal calling you back to awareness. On the 19th of October, you begin to understand that you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, evolving, learning. Forgiveness is also an act of love, not love toward the past, but love toward the present moment. When you forgive yourself, you return home to the now. You no longer live divided between memory and fear. You stand in this exact moment and breathe freely again. The weight you carried quietly for years starts to lift. The tightness in your chest softens. You begin to realize that healing was never about changing the past. It was about changing the way you hold it. You can only hold pain for so long before it becomes your identity. 19th of October arrives like a gentle reminder that your identity is not your suffering. You are not your silence. You are not the mistakes. You are the awareness rising beyond them. Forgiveness allows you to see your life with new eyes. It transforms bitterness into wisdom, regret into compassion. You start to treat yourself with kindness instead of judgment, with patience instead of pressure. And in that space, you begin to grow again. Forgiving yourself is not a single act, it's a process. Some days it will feel easy. Other days the old pain will whisper again. But each time you choose understanding over blame, softness over resistance, you strengthen your connection to peace. 19th October marks that process of return, a return to your own heart after years of turning away from it. You cannot expect peace while still carrying the past like a burden. You cannot expect light while refusing to open the curtains of self-acceptance. Forgiveness is the opening. It's the moment you choose to breathe rather than hold. It's the shift from I should have to I did what I could. It's not weakness to forgive yourself, it's wisdom. Because only a wise soul knows that pain loses its meaning once it teaches you what it came to teach. When you forgive yourself, you stop needing to hide. You stop wearing guilt as a form of identity. You start living from truth, not from shame. The feelings you never shared begin to surface. But this time, they don't come with heaviness. They come with lightness. They come with understanding. Because forgiveness changes how you hold your emotions, not as something to escape, but as something to embrace. 19th of October is not just another day, it is a turning point, a quiet but powerful shift. It's the moment you decide that your healing matters more than your history. It's when you choose to step out of self-blame and into self-awareness. It's when you finally stop searching for closure from others and give it to yourself. Forgiveness is the closure you've been waiting for. So breathe deeply on this day. Let the pain that has lived in your silence find its release. Let the past rest. Let yourself rest. You don't have to hold the weight anymore. The person you were back then deserves your understanding, not your punishment. And the person you are becoming deserves freedom, not guilt. When you forgive yourself, you free every part of you that was trapped in yesterday. You begin to see that healing was never about forgetting what happened. It was about remembering who you are beyond it. That's the power of 19th October. It marks the beginning of your emotional freedom, the quiet rebirth of your soul, and the return of your heart to peace. 19th October stands as a new emotional beginning. It is not just another date on the calendar. It is a quiet turning point, a moment when you decide that carrying the same pain no longer serves your path. The healing you've been searching for does not arrive in a sudden burst of light. It comes softly, like the morning after a long night. It comes when you finally decide to let go of the feelings you never shared, the stories you never told, and the versions of yourself that existed only to survive. 19th of October is the day you start to breathe again. The past has been heavy, not because it's still happening, but because you've kept it alive inside you. Every unspoken feeling has built layers around your heart, making it harder to connect, harder to feel free. But on the 19th of October, something begins to shift. You begin to understand that healing is not about forgetting what happened. It's about seeing it differently, not as a wound, but as a teacher. The emotions that once weighed you down begin to turn into strength the moment you allow them to be seen. Healing starts when you stop running from yourself. For too long, you have looked for peace outside, in people, in places, in distractions, hoping something would take the ache away. But 19th of October teaches you that the peace you seek has always been waiting within. It reveals itself only when you stop escaping and finally sit with what is. This day invites you to meet yourself honestly, without judgment, without fear. To look at every scar not as damage, but as proof that you endured and evolved. The feelings you never shared still hold power, but not the kind that controls you, the kind that transforms you once you face them. 19th October is the day that transformation begins. It's when the old emotions start to dissolve and new understanding takes their place. You start to see how everything that once hurt you was shaping something inside: resilience, wisdom, compassion. The pain didn't come to destroy you, it came to prepare you for the version of yourself that now emerges. Every new beginning starts with an ending. 19th October marks the end of your silence, the end of your resistance, the end of holding on to things that no longer fit the person you are becoming. The emotions that once scared you lose their power when you accept them as part of your story. The healing doesn't happen through force. It happens through surrender, through allowing yourself to feel, to release, to rise. On this day, the storm within you begins to calm. You no longer fight your feelings. You begin to understand them. You no longer suppress your truth. You begin to live it. The self that once hid behind silence slowly starts to emerge, clearer, softer, wiser. 19th October becomes the space where your inner world starts to breathe again. You realize that the healing you were waiting for is not something coming from the outside. It is something awakening within. This is the power of awareness. It turns pain into purpose. Every emotion you once buried becomes a seed once planted in the soil of awareness. It grows into strength, clarity, and peace. 19th October carries that energy, the energy of renewal. It's the quiet but powerful realization that you no longer need to carry yesterday's emotions into today. You can finally set them down. You can finally walk forward lighter. Healing is not always a loud process. Sometimes it's just the soft acceptance that you are ready to begin again. It's the decision to stop waiting for others to understand and to start understanding yourself. On the 19th of October, that decision is made not through words, but through energy, through a quiet shift within your heart that says, I am ready to move on. The weight begins to dissolve, and for the first time in a long while, you feel free to feel. The new beginning that 19th October brings is not a moment of perfection, it's a moment of truth. It's when you finally admit what you need, and you are not the mind, what you've avoided, and what you're ready to let go of. It's when you understand that peace doesn't come from having no pain, but from no longer being controlled by it. You step into this day not as the person shaped by old wounds, but as the one shaped by growth. You rise not because everything is fixed, but because you have accepted that healing is a lifelong journey, and that journey starts now. Every emotion you once feared begins to soften. The anger that once burned becomes understanding. The sadness that once isolated you becomes depth. The guilt that once haunted you becomes wisdom. 19th October carries this transformation silently within its energy. It is the rebirth of your emotional self, the moment your heart stops carrying the past and starts opening to life again. You begin to see beauty where there was once pain. You begin to feel gratitude for the lessons disguised as loss. You begin to find clarity in the places that once confused you. That is the sign of true healing, when the same memories that once hurt you now bring peace because you finally see their purpose. 19th October is the day that brings that clarity, that emotional cleansing, that the return to stillness. You no longer wait for the world to heal you. You become your own healer. You speak to yourself with softness. You forgive, you release, you grow. The parts of you that were once silenced begin to express themselves again through presence, through peace, through a quiet smile that comes from within. So let 19th October be the day your new story begins. Let it be the day you stop identifying with pain and start identifying with power. Let it be the moment you realize that every feeling you never shared was simply guiding you back to yourself. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. And as the day unfolds, you feel it deeply. The calm, the clarity, the freedom. The storm that once raged within has now become the wind that carries you forward. 19 October is not the end of your healing. It is the moment your heart remembers that it has always known how to heal.